I'm going to be talking to Drew Yewchuk, who's a public interest lawyer that does a lot of work on Alberta oil and gas, and particularly on the oil sands and environmental liabilities. We're going to be talking about his ABLAWG post, along with his co-authors, about the Mining Financial Security Program, which governs the security around oil sands assets. So welcome to the interview, Drew.
Great to be here again.
Why is this important? I mean, why should the average person, whether they're in Alberta or outside, care about this issue?
If the oil sands shut down early or in an unanticipated time, the closure costs will fall to the public. The companies are supposed to legally be required to do it, but if the mines shut in a way where they don't have the finances to do it and they enter bankruptcy, they'll leave the mines behind. This is famously something that happened with a bunch of past mines in Canada. Gold mines, for instance, Giant Mine is probably the most famous one of all time. So the concern is that that might happen with the oil sands. Price of oil drops faster than expected. The oil sands mine has become the public's problem, and the closure is going to be fantastically expensive.
Okay, so we've got this fund, the Mining Financial Security Program. Explain it to us, just briefly, if you could.
So the if program has four pieces to it that are supposed to make sure that the mines don't close without the operators having posted security. One of them is supposed to account for slow decreases in oil price. One of them is supposed to account for depleting reserves. One of them is supposed to account for reclamation not being done as scheduled. And for the heck of me, I forget what the fourth one even is because it's never collected any money. Right? I think maybe just the base deposit. They take a small initial deposit when the mine starts.
Okay, so we had Alberta Energy Regulator. One of its employees gave a presentation in 2018 about the costs, the amount of unfunded liabilities, and for the oil sands at that time, it was $130 billion. The MFSP up until recently had like 900 million or a billion in it. And so, where are we at now with that?
So uh, the estimate of 130 billion, we never got a good explanation on why that was so much higher than the official estimate. At the time that came out, the official estimate was about 30 billion. In 2023, it jumped to 47, and then it went up to 57 for 2024. In 2025, it started to go back down to 52.7. The explanation was that the oil and gas companies running the oil sands are saying, actually, it's going to be cheaper to treat the tailings than we thought. But that's it. Like that sentence is pretty much all the public was told. $5 billion drop in estimates due to something the oil sands companies say they figured out about the tailings. We have no idea what. I don't find that reliable. I don't know why anyone would, but the official estimate is now 52.7 billion. Uh, this is the first year in 9 years, I think 10, depending on how you count it, that the Mine Financial Security Program did collect money for an oil sand mine. The Syncrude's Aurora North Mildred Lake mine had to post 868 million in security, which almost doubles the amount of security held for the oil sands. Uh, it is now at the entire MFSP program is now at 2.6 billion. That includes the coal mines, which are relatively tiny compared to the oil sands, but they still count them in there.
Why is the Syncrude payment significant? Is it about now we're getting a sense of what it's going to cost for mine closure?
It's significant because it's the first time it's happened. It means that that mine is estimated to be 15 years from the end of its reserve life, which doesn't line up with the end of mine life that they get regulatory approvals for, because until last year, they were allowed to add in some reserves from in situ mining, which is mining actually done using steam-assisted gravity through wells, but being processed at the same plant as the mine would process its own bitumen. They stopped that in 2024, but they allowed them to keep all of the reserves that they had already put in past years. So the strange one is the Suncor base mine end of mine life is scheduled for 2033. So they should have started posting 7 years ago. They still haven't posted anything because they, I assume, have put in tons of in situ reserves. But this is the first time it's been posted. And because it's a simple 10% calculation of the estimated liability, it lets you know exactly how much the MFSP estimates one of the mine's closure at. So for Syncrude's Aurora North Mildred Lake, the estimated closure liability is 10.7 billion. We have the total closure liability estimated at 52.7. We don't have the specifics for any other mine. This is the first time we have a specific number for any of the mines.
So let me understand that, make sure I've got this right. The cost to close the Syncrude's mine is $10 billion, but they've only put in just under a billion.
Yes. So they will, the MFSP design for the part of the system that accounts for running out of reserves collects 10% of liabilities every year, starting 15 years out, so that when the mine has 6 years of reserves left, it's supposed to be fully secured. So Syncrude should be posting this same amount every year for the next 9 years if the MFSP continues to run as expected.
The problem here, as I see it, is that they're not likely to, or the past history here would suggest that it's unlikely that they will post it. I mean, you just brought up the issue of one of the other operations that should have been posting and had, 7 years ago and hasn't been posting. So does that give you any confidence that, Syncrude's going to post next year?
They posted this year, and that was a huge shock. I didn't realize that the Alberta government was going to change what had been, in my view, basically a loophole in the program in a way that was going to get one of the mining companies to actually post security. So maybe they'll post again next year. I was shocked that they even posted this time. On the less good side, other than the Suncor base operations, which might start posting these any other time, the other mines aren't expected to run out of reserves until sometime in the 2050s or the early 2060s. So the running out of reserves part of the mine financial security program is probably not going to help Albertans with more than two of the seven mines.
What about, because, here at Energy Media, we talk all the time about peak oil demand in 2030, decline starting in the early 2030s to 2035. That comes from the International Energy Agency. And so what provisions are there if prices fall and basically we're now in a situation where, the global demand is declining and it's an economic reason why the mines might close?
The MFSP does have a part of it that's supposed to count for that. The asset safety factor, I think, the ASF system, it's not well designed. In the paper that I wrote with Martin Olshinsky and Andrew Leach had a pretty lengthy part explaining how it was screwing up the calculations of the liabilities and the assets with different calculation errors. This year is the first time with the Mine Financial Security Program information that they reported their estimated asset value for the mines. So this is all the oil sands mines and all the coal mines in Alberta. They estimated it being worth 683 billion. So they wouldn't have to post security until it was only 3 times the amount of the liabilities. So until that number goes down to 150 billion, although it's specific to each mine, but we only have the cumulative numbers, no security will be posted under that. So that doesn't look likely to engage very soon.
Let's wrap up this interview with this question, Drew. In the past, I've interviewed you many, many times about the conventional oil and gas liability system, which, as you've pointed out over and over again, has been, poorly designed for the better part of 100 years, because it didn't take security at the beginning of the well's life when there was revenue. It tried to take security or enforce reclamation at the end of the life when nobody wants anything to do with the well. But you've commented in other interviews that system essentially is the basis for the oil sands system. And so, given how poorly the other system functioned, might we expect that kind level of function for this one?
Yeah. Yes. The MFSP is still broken. The changes that they put in 2024 fixed only, I think, only the problem relating to the depleting reserves part. So this year's news is some good news. I mean, security is security. They finally got some after 9 years of taking nothing from the oil sands at all. But the depleting reserves function of the MFSP isn't really going to help with more than two mines. The other ones are scheduled to run long enough and presumably have added in some reserves in addition to their scheduled mine life, where it's the other part, which is broken, that is going to be the problem.
Well, Drew, I have no doubt that we're going to be talking about this again. This is an ongoing serious issue. Thank you very much for this.
No problem. Nice talking to you.